Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to give you guys my opinion with regards to convicted felons or otherwise prohibited people and gun rights. Okay, so this is just my opinion. You can have a different opinion and that's okay. We can still be friends. In fact, you can put your opinion down in the comment section. And like I said, I'm not going to get angry if it's different from mine. Okay, it's okay. We can have different opinions. I know sometimes people get very touchy with this subject. But here's the thing. Whatever opinion you have is probably going to be formed by your experience. Okay, so my experience is I grew up in New York City. Up until the time I was 37 years old, right? I was denied my gun rights because because of where I lived. I lived in New York City. All right. Everywhere else in the country they could have, almost everywhere else in the country they could have gun rights. I couldn't have them because I was in New York City. I didn't even know that I could just leave. Right. It took me a while to just say, hey, I don't have to be there anymore. I could just be somewhere else, right? So, sometimes when you're living inside of a prison, it's, you don't realize that the door's open and you can just walk right out. Okay, so that's the reality of things sometimes. But anyway, while I was living in New York City, I'm not going to say that I had any guns while I was there, but if I had a gun like this, right, in my house, and I was caught with this, right, they would have charged me and probably convicted me of a felony, okay? So that's simply for possession, just simply for having that gun, and owning that gun and keeping it in New York City, I would have been a convicted felon. So a lot of times when people look at somebody and say that that person's a felon, right, they have that label on them, right? They have that label of felon on them. They don't look at it from the perspective of, hey, that label could possibly be on me, all right? They don't look at it from that perspective. All of us in the gun community, right? If you're a gun owner, if you have a gun like this, okay, it is very easy, all right, for the anti-gunners to get the label felon put right here on your forehead one day, okay? So don't look at prohibited people and say, I can never be in that category, because you could. They're trying very hard to get you in that category, okay? So that's my perspective as somebody that grew up in New York City. Now, by the way, and I'm still to some extent living under that threat of political persecution, because where I am here in PA, I'm only about 30 minutes from the New Jersey border, and sometimes I have to get near the border for to conduct some business. So let's say I'm near the New Jersey border, right, and I have a gun like this with a 17-round magazine, and something happens where I end up on the other side of the border, right, either because let's say I get lost, or the traffic is directed in that direction, and I get caught in New Jersey with a gun like this, all right, I will also be charged with a felony, okay, and probably be convicted, and then again I will be a prohibited person. So things can sometimes happen in your life that are beyond your control, that you don't intend to happen, and you can get that label yourself. Okay, so that's one of the things I tell people. Don't look at those people over there and say you can never be in the same category as them, right? Because especially as gun owners, you can be in that category. In fact, the anti-gunners are trying very hard to get all of us put in that category. Okay, so with New York and New Jersey, if you get caught with a gun over there, they're going to persecute you. Not just prosecute you. They're going to persecute you. They're going to really go after you as hard as possible because they're trying to make a political point. Okay. Likewise, what we saw, let's say back in the riots of 2020, there was a case where somebody started a fire, got somebody burned to death, right? Somebody actually died, and the prosecutor dropped charges because that was a political protest. Okay, so what we're looking at here is political injustice, where in some cases people actually commit violent crimes that get people hurt, killed, and the charges are completely dropped. In other cases, right, like, for example, there was a woman that accidentally ended up in New Jersey with her carry gun. Didn't know that she couldn't have it there. Made the mistake of volunteering to the officer that she had her gun. Right, she told him that she was legally armed because she didn't know, and she was trying to be be helpful and courteous and show respect to the officer. In which case, he arrested her, charged her. She got convicted. She was about ready to start her jail sentence, and the governor gave her a last-minute pardon. That was Governor Christie, and I think it was wrong that he basically waited until like the last possible second. Right? He was like, it took a lot of pressure to get him to pardon her. Okay, so that was completely wrong. A clear case of injustice, right? That is politically motivated. And in fact, there's another case. Somebody I met, they told me, I think it was their brother or their friend, had a house here in PA, had a house in Jersey. The kids out here had a BB gun. They were playing in their backyard. Not a big deal here. He had to go run back to his house in Jersey to get something or whatever. He didn't realize that the kids had put the BB gun in the back of the car. He gets pulled over for something completely unrelated. The cop sees the BB gun in the back of the car. He ends up doing 6 months in jail for a BB gun. Okay, again, that is political persecution. First of all, the cop himself could have said, "Okay, no big deal, just go," or the prosecutor could have said, "Hey, there was obviously no malice intended here. This person wasn't going to use that BB gun to go and assassinate somebody." But they wanted to make a political point. Okay, so again, coming back to the point here, all right, this person never knew that he was going to be labeled a criminal for having a BB gun. Okay, so don't think that you can't end up with that label, criminal. Right? They can easily put that sticker on you. Right? So now let's talk about how about the dangerous felons, right? The violent ones. How do we keep them from getting the guns? Well, first let me say this, okay? When the rest of us all have guns, we can defend ourselves from those violent felons. Okay, so in reality, okay, I'm not so afraid of the criminal with the gun because I'm capable of defending myself from them. In fact, with a gun like this, okay, I can defend myself from a whole gang of criminals. Okay. So I'm capable of defending myself from those criminals. What I'm not capable of defending myself from is the government, the real criminals. Okay, so that's the reality, and that's why that is the purpose of the Second Amendment. The purpose of the Second Amendment is so that the people can protect themselves from a potentially tyrannical government. Okay, so as it is right now, on a day-to-day basis, I'm not worried about gangs from Philadelphia coming here, right, trying to kill me, right? That's not what's on my mind. What I do worry about is maybe one of these alphabet soup agencies, right? One of these maybe 3-letter agencies, maybe, they decide that they're going to come after me, right? That's something that, that is the more dangerous thing to me, right? So I mean, that's my reality. Again, based on my life experiences, luckily so far I have not had any interaction with any government agencies. But on a day-to-day basis, that is a more realistic threat to me, right, than any gangs in Philadelphia or Chicago or Los Angeles or in New York City, right? On a day-to-day basis, that is the real threat to me. Okay, so again, my life experience, yours might be different. Okay, now the other thing to consider, right? The final point here that I'm going to make. Okay, going back to the purpose of the Second Amendment, right? So that the people can protect themselves from a potential tyranny, right? You got to ask yourself, if it ever comes to that, who's going to do the fighting? Okay, who's going to do the fighting? Well, I can tell you who's not going to do the fighting, right? The people who are not going to fight tyrants are the people that are afraid of being labeled felons, right? Those people are not going to do the fighting, right? Because the first thing that the tyrant is going to do is they're going to label them as felons, right? Because we know that Stalin labeled all of his political enemies criminals. Hitler labeled his political enemies insane, right? He had them lobotomized, okay? So if you're afraid of being called a felon, okay, you are never, ever, all right, going to fight any dictators, right? And here's the thing. I'm not saying that I'm the person that would do that either, okay? I'm just saying that for sure, the person that's afraid of being labeled a felon, all right, is not going to be fighting any dictators, right? Again, and I'm not playing hero here. I'm not saying that I'm going to be leading the charge either. Okay, now, who is, all right? It's not going to be the soccer mom, all right? It's not going to be the soccer mom that's, that's just waking up to the fact that, hey, the kids are being brainwashed in school. They're just waking up to this, right? They didn't realize this, when it started. They're just starting to see it now. But it's certainly not going to be the soccer mom that's going to go fight tyrants. Okay, so who is going to go do the actual fighting? Who's going to take that risk? Okay, well, it might be the people that have that label felons, right? It may be, I don't know 100% sure, but it might be them. Who were the Sons of Liberty, right? Who were these rebels, right? Who basically, who had that little tea party, right, in the Boston Harbor? Who were these guys, right? In a different time, different place, right? They just would have been, I think, thugs, right? They would have been gangsters. They would have been the ruffians, the troublemakers, right? You know what? Those same people, they just happened to be right time, right place, where they did the right thing. It was probably a tiny chance, but yeah, they went down in history as heroes. But who were they, in fact? What were their personalities? I bet you that if you were to dig deep into that, you would find some pretty rough characters. Okay, I can who I'm trying to think. I gotta look this up. Pause for a second. Okay, I'm back. I had to do a brain reboot because I forgot. But the question I was going to ask is, the father of the U.S. Navy, John Paul Jones, famous for that saying, "I have only begun to fight." Well, before he became a Revolutionary War hero, right? Basically, he was wanted for murder by the British. Okay, completely unrelated to the American Revolution. Okay, so prior to him getting involved with the American Revolution, the guy was wanted for murder, right? So if the war hadn't happened, you probably would have never heard of him. He probably just would have been recorded as a footnote somewhere as a criminal, right? So that's something to consider. Who are the people that actually fight revolutions? Okay, the founding fathers, right? If they had not won the American Revolution, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Samuel Adams, all these guys would have been labeled criminals, felons by the British government. And that was their government at the time, right? So while they were fighting the war, they were British subjects, okay? They were criminals, okay? So that's a couple. Let's put it this way. That's a couple of things for you guys to think about. So all I'm saying is, don't just accept the term this guy's a criminal or that guy's a felon without considering for a second that you could possibly, one day have that label put on yourself, either involuntarily, right, because you're politically persecuted, or maybe voluntarily, right, because things just get so bad that you decide that, hey, this is a cause worth fighting for. Okay, so again, this is all theoretical. We're just it all comes back to the point of whether or not felons, prohibited people should have guns or not. I'm not one to just say outright no, they shouldn't. and my personal experience is that, you know, in some alternate reality, if I had a gun like this in New York City, right, or a gun like this in New York City while I was living there, and I was caught and convicted, okay, I would have been a felon. I would have been a prohibited person, okay? So don't think it's impossible to end up in that position. So thanks for watching. Drop some opinions below. Even if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. If you're not a member of my channel, subscribe. Hit the bell button so you get notification of new videos I put up.